Hey everybody, I'm Scott Allen Miller. Today on Sam IT, we're going to talk about that myth of Active Directory that it poses a huge risk to your environment. This is one I hear all the time, and I'm always surprised. I mean, I know some of the sources for this, but it still surprises me to no end how many times people are terrified that their Active Directory is going to go down and that they will be unable to work. What's interesting is the default use case of Active Directory is to authenticate people to workstations. When doing this, Active Directory credentials get cached on those workstations by default. That means that should Active Directory go down, people are still able to work and log in and do things, and they may not even notice that they have lost Active Directory. Now, there's lots of cases where this doesn't continue to be the case, and if you're using heavily mapped drives and other services that require constant checking in with Active Directory, then losing your Active Directory in the middle of the working day, for example, will cause impact. But it won't stop people from working entirely. It'll just stop them from being able to use those services that require the carry-on authentication that AD provides. But for a lot of environments, especially those in the SMB, those additional services may be non-critical or in many cases simply don't exist. I have worked with many an SMB who is able to lose Active Directory even for weeks at a time, and while people can't update their passwords during that time, the average person doesn't update your passwords all that often and shouldn't be, because that leads to weird, insecure things. See the talk on NIST and password recommendations. But because of the way that passwords get cached, people are able to continue working on their own machines indefinitely if AD goes offline. So the risk of domain controllers is often one that is a myth or not as impactful as people like to present it to be. Of course, this depends on your environment. You can easily have an environment where your most critical services require AD to be available at all times. In those situations, I would ask, why did you choose to make AD such a critical function if it's not necessary? Of course, there may be good reasons that make it worth it, but it's worth evaluating, because in most cases when I ask that question, people then say, I didn't realize I could do things without AD, and all I have to do is disconnect AD and it fixes my risk, and that's way better than what I was trying to do to make all these things work with each other that didn't necessarily need to do it. As often is the case, keep it simple. We don't need to overcomplicate IT. That often gives us the best results. So that's really where we need to be with Active Directory. Just consider, does it really carry the risks that we assume? And if it does, are those risks things that we introduced that don't have to be there? And if they do have to be there, then you need to address your Active Directory through high availability methodologies or whatever is appropriate for your environment to make sure that your AD remains available so that your other services remain available. But for a lot of us, you can simply work without it. It is worth noting, if you do go into a cache mode, of course, you can't move to other people's workstations and log in for the first time because you will not have been cached on those workstations. But again, the SMB, you don't normally move to new workstations on a very regular basis, so it's typically not a problem, and typically your AD outages are in hours or days, not weeks or months, so the impact there, again, is often low. Thanks for joining me. Remember to like and subscribe, and if you want to comment about your Active Directory, ask questions about how you might be able to mitigate risk or whether risk is real in your environment, put it in the comments below. And as always, feel free to sponsor us on Patreon and help make shows like this possible. Discover how easy and affordable business telephone service can be. Say it with Talkadillo.